Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
We are starting the class. Yeah, good morning. We're starting the class. I think people are taking a lot of time to come. Okay, only 104 people came. Now we'll see. So most of the times, actually, I thought of planning to tell you about the carcinomas, start the carcinomas, but the PowerPoint is not available. Anyhow, the flow is about the complications of sinusitis. Sometimes we think that it is a normal sinusitis, but it gets into complications. So it's like compliant boy becoming a complicated boy. We always think like that. So complications of sinusitis is definition. So any adverse progression of infection beyond, so anything beyond the mucoperiosteum, that could be called as the complication. So mucoperiosteum of that particular lining of the sinus is called as complication. So it is a mucoperiosteal lining of the paranasal sinuses. So it can involve the bone and the neighboring structures. So bone and the neighbor, when you take the maxillary sinus, for example, this is the maxillary sinus and this is the orbit, for example, and these are the ethmoid sinus. This will become the cribriform plate, and then this becomes the anterior cranial fossa, and this becomes the brain. So what happens here is that, so we have a spread of this one towards the orbit, orbital complications, spread of ethmoid towards the brain, so intracranial complications, something like complications of your CSOM. So you have all the different things like this. Okay. So it is orbital or intracranial, or it can be related to dentition also. As you know that this particular this maxilla is related to, so very rarely you find the maxillary these molars and premolars especially. Okay, so those can be related to this, and this can be going to that, something like a oroantral fistula, that can be called as oroantral fistula. So what happens here is they compromise the function of any part of the body. So from the sinus they can go to anywhere. So it can lead to, like, you know, the tonsillar streptococcal infection leading to heart, you know, the traumatic heart disease and all those things, something like that. So it can go to any other part of the body, and then it can lead to this particular loss of function of that. Okay. So it is a function of any part of body compromise. So etiology, what could be the weak immune response? As we have seen this corona time, everything talking about immune response, very young and very old, and inadequate, inefficient treatment. If you are not treating a treatment properly, then it might lead to that. Okay, the treatment might lead to that particular formation of the complication, inadequately treated sinusitis. Or it can be infection of high virulence organism, whether the organism may be having very much high amount of energy, that is the virulence, the ability, the infective ability is more, therefore it is leading to complication, Next is the abnormalities of mucociliary clearance. Okay, I always tell you in the sinusitis, that is body damage, life becomes drainage. Okay, body damage, life becomes drainage, that is the drainage pathway affected. So drainage is affected, how? Like a mucociliary clearance mechanism, that is like a conveyor belt in an airport. As you know, if one of the suitcases is falling down, the other suitcases also get disturbed, so it gets stasis. So what happens is it leads to, so obstruction, stasis, and leading to edema, and then leading to complications. So they burst out from that place. So that is that something called as empyema formation. If pus is there, it gets as a pocket called as empyema formation. So along with that, blockage of sinus ostia, as we are seeing here, and also allergy associated with allergy also leads to formation of this particular complications. Roots of infections, always the thinner bones, that is lamina peperosa. If you take this orbit, you know, in between there will be ethmoids here. The lamina peperosa is the medial wall of the orbit. As you know, this is the medial wall of the orbit. So it can spread intraorbitally like that through natural suture lines. So as suture lines, like, as you know, there can be any suture line in and around the sinuses. So it can lead to spread of this tumor, this particular sinusitis, like cancer only. Okay, it's just like a metastasis of a cancer. Through normal suture lines, through natural canals like infraorbital canals, and retrograde thrombophlebitis. As you could see, retrograde thrombophlebitis is through the venous spread. It is called as retrograde thrombophlebitis through natural canals like infraorbital canal. As you could see, the maxilla is related to this infraorbital canal. So infraorbital, inferior orbital fissure or infraorbital canal, anything like that, which is already anatomically present, it helps in the conduction of infection. What is the retrograde thrombophlebitis? It is by means of diploic vein of Breschet. So something called as diploic vein of this Breschet. D-shaped veins, they will helping in the retrograde phlebitis. Closely related to roots of upper, second premolar and first molar. I already told you maxillary sinus is related to roots of upper premolar and molar tooth. And periarterial space of Virchow-Robin space. So around the arteries, I already told you in fungal infections like mucormycosis. In mucormycosis, there is something called as periarterial space, Virchow-Robin space. It is called as Virchow-Robin space. So the infection can spread through this also, because through this blood vessels, periarterial space, it can go into the brain. It can go into the brain. So something related to this particular cephalic complications. Okay, intracranial complications. Common pathogens, Staphylococcus aureus is the most important thing. Staph aureus, Streptococcus pneumoniae, Haemophilus influenzae, Moraxella catarrhalis. So this Streptococcus, Haemophilus, and Moraxella, this is the order that is seen in ASOM also. Even in ASOM, you can find this one. Even in ASOM, you will find this one. So this is Streptococcus pneumoniae, Haemophilus influenzae, Moraxella catarrhalis. You can see it even in the case of your ASOM. Anaerobes like Bacteroides species and Aspergillus and Rhizopus. Aspergillus and Rhizopus. So these are all related to the your fungi. So Aspergillus and Rhizopus is related to fungi, and Bacteroides species, as you know, anaerobes, and these are related to your same like ASOM. And then Staphylococcus aureus is the most important, most common organism causing the these complications is Staph aureus. Okay. The classification of these complications can be done as a local complication and distant complication. Okay, acute complication and chronic complication and associated diseases. Associated diseases we will keep it aside. Associated diseases will keep it aside. Okay, we'll keep it aside. And but these local complications like orbital, especially these ethmoids, they are related to this orbit directly. Ethmoids and intracranial complications and bony complications and dental complications. Dental directly related to nearby. So orbital, intracranial, bony, and distant complications like toxic shock syndrome. So especially Staph aureus. This Staph aureus leading to toxic shock syndrome. Staph aureus related to toxic shock syndrome. This particular toxic shock syndrome is caused by the Staph aureus. And chronic complications like mucocele. So when a mucus retention cyst, it is called as mucus retention cyst. When it is getting as a pocket of mucus. So especially more common in the case of frontal sinus. Where is mucocele more common? Frontal sinus. It is more common in the case of frontal sinus. Mucocele is more common in the case of frontal sinus. If pus is getting as a pocket, it is a pyocele. It is a chronic complication. Okay. And associated diseases like otitis media. As you know, otitis media, adenotonsillitis, bronchiectasis, atrophic rhinitis, and nasal polyposis. So otitis media, adenotonsillitis, bronchiectasis, atrophic rhinitis, and nasal polyposis, they all can be there. Orbital complications like, what are the orbital complications are the most important complications and more common complications, okay, this particular sinusitis, okay. So they are the preseptal cellulitis. So orbit, if you take the orbit as it is, if you take the orbit, so you will be having something like, just a moment, I'll change the color. So if you take the orbit, for example, orbit is something like this. For example, from the side view, you are looking the orbit. There is a periosteum for the orbit. The periosteum for the orbit continues as an orbital septum. Orbital septum. So this is called as orbital septum. Orbital septum. Okay, this is called as orbital septum. In front there is an anterior part, and then behind there is a posterior part. And as a whole, this particular this lid is formed by something called as tarsal plate. Tarsal plate. It is formed by something called as tarsal plate. So orbital septum, tarsal plate, and here are the lashes that are present. So cellulitis, when it is there in the orbit, so this orbit is going to continue periosteum as a septum. So the one which is in front is called a preseptal, and the one which is without is called as extraperiosteal, intraperiosteal, cavernous sinus thrombosis, and orbital apex syndrome. So that is the septum of orbit. That is something called as preseptal cellulitis. This is one complication. The other complication is orbital cellulitis without abscess. Orbital cellulitis without abscess. Next, orbital cellulitis with extraperiosteal abscess. Orbital cellulitis with extraperiosteal abscess. Next, orbital cellulitis with intraperiosteal abscess. Orbital cellulitis without abscess, extraperiosteal abscess, and intraperiosteal abscess. Next, cavernous sinus thrombosis can be sometimes called as intracranial complication. It is not linked with orbital, but we are just telling that. So what is cavernous sinus actually? So from the middle cranial fossa, the nerves that are formed, that are there from the brain, they go towards the superior orbital fissure. Superior orbital fissure, they go through something called as cavernous sinus. This is the understanding of cavernous sinus. So superior orbital fissure is related, is it or not, to orbit? And superior orbital fissure is related to orbit, and it is related to our, cavernous sinus and middle cranial fossa. It can spread like this. So this is the anatomical understanding that you should have. So, and this middle cranial fossa is related to what? Here is the sphenoid sinus. Is it or not? Sphenoid sinus can go through middle cranial fossa, or in fact is with the ethmoid, anterior ethmoid and posterior ethmoid. So next is orbital apex syndrome. The other thing is orbital apex syndrome. It's called OA syndrome. Okay. So intracranial complications, just we are listing out. So what are the intra-orbital complications? Preseptal, orbital cellulitis 3 types, with abscess, with extraperiosteal abscess, with intraperiosteal abscess, and cavernous sinus thrombosis, extraorbital apex syndrome, the 6th one. When you take intracranial complications, there are meningitis, encephalitis, extradural abscess, subdural abscess, intracerebral abscess, cavernous sinus thrombosis, superior sagittal sinus thrombosis. So cavernous sinus, as you know, superior sagittal sinus, as you know, if you take the skull, it is running all over, is it or not? So through the falx cerebri, is it or not? So that is the superior sagittal sinus thrombosis. So meningitis, meningitis is the meninges, that is pachymeningeal and leptomeningeal, the two types, pachy and lepto are the one. So as you know, dura, arachnoid and pia will be the coats upon the brain. Dura, arachnoid and pia will be the coats of the brain. Subarachnoid space, there will be a CSF. So you have to do diagnosis by CSF fluid analysis, the meningitis. Okay. Next, encephalitis is, that is nothing but the brain tissue. Cepha is brain tissue. Brain tissue. So brain tissue itself is getting affected. That is called as encephalitis. Okay, as you know. Next, extradural abscess. So this is the dura, this is the arachnoid, this is the pia, and this is the bone of the skull. So extradural abscess is typically like a, it's typically like in this shape. So it is a convexo-concave. Convexo-concave. This is dura, this is arachnoid, this is pia, this is convexo-concave, this is the peria, this is the particular calvarium, skull bone. Okay. And subdural abscess. Subdural abscess below the dura, it will be like, it will be like a biconvex. Subdural abscess will be like a biconvex. This is a biconvex, most commonly biconvex. This is concavo-convex. Convexo-concave. So convexo-concave. Convexo-concave. This is convexo-concave. And intracerebral abscess, within the brain tissue, there is a collection of pus. So that is the intracerebral abscess within the brain tissue, that is below the pia. Okay. Next, cavernous sinus thrombosis, superior sagittal sinus thrombosis. Other complications like bony complications like osteitis and osteomyelitis. Osteitis and osteomyelitis. Osteitis is the one which is occurring in the one without bone marrow, Osteomyelitis is the one which is occurring with bone marrow, Osteomyelitis occurs in bone marrow. So Pott's puffy tumor, there are two things like Cox peculiar tumor. Cox peculiar tumor, you will get confused in surgery. Cox peculiar tumor, it is a sebaceous cyst. It is nothing but a sebaceous cyst. It is nothing but a sebaceous cyst. Cox peculiar tumor is nothing but a sebaceous cyst. But Pott's puffy tumor is nothing but osteomyelitis of the frontal bone. Osteomyelitis of the frontal bone. Cox peculiar tumor is nothing but sebaceous cyst. Pott's puffy tumor is frontal bone osteomyelitis. Dental things like dental abscess and orodental fistula. OA fistula. So there is a connection between. So when you remove the maxillary molars, for example, if you try to remove them. So if you try to remove them, then what happens? So maxillary molars. So what happens is there is a formation of connection between these two. Orodental fistula. Orodental fistula. So that is orodental fistula. So now we are reading the orbital complications a bit rapidly. We'll go just try to catch up these things. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Are you following? Yes. Please say yes immediately because I can know that you are following. So introduction to the most commonest complication of sinusitis is nothing but your orbital complication, because nearby is the orbit. Most common is the orbital complication. It is a common thing you write in the exam. Young people are at higher risk, that is less than 20 years. That is children more commonly. Okay. According to one study, you are also children. Okay. Children are more commonly associated. Ethmoid sinus is most commonly associated by in between the orbits is the most common. So we have a lot of FEMS. So ethmoid more than frontal, more than sphenoid, more than maxillary. EFSM, it is called as EFSM, that is for the sake of your orbital complications. What is the combination? These are asked in the entrance examinations. Orbital are more common in ethmoid, followed by frontal, followed by sphenoid, followed by maxillary. So left orbit is more common in ethmoid. Don't ask me why is it so. I cannot answer you. Okay. So if you take, I already told you, so this is a periosteum that is coming as a septum, and then anterior part, posterior part, and you will be having as a whole the tarsal plate and the eyelid lash. Okay. So you should be having idea about, if you take, this is the periosteum. This periosteum is running inside also. So if the periosteum is running inside also. So there can be, this is a normal one, there can be diffuse cellulitis with no abscess. Diffuse cellulitis with no abscess. Next, there can be extra periosteal abscess. Extra periosteal abscess. Okay, there can be extra periosteal abscess. There can be intra periosteal abscess. There can be intra periosteal abscess. If this is extra periosteal abscess, this is intra periosteal abscess. Within the periosteum, there is abscess. There is preseptal cellulitis, as you could see over here. Okay, preseptal cellulitis. This is the stage of preseptal cellulitis. And at the end of the day, I told you superior orbital fissure, middle cranial fossa are connected through cavernous sinus. This is called as cavernous sinus thrombosis. So what are the 6 variants that you can have? Normal, preseptal cellulitis. So normal can form preseptal cellulitis. So normal will go to preseptal cellulitis. It forms diffuse cellulitis with no abscess. Next intraperiosteal abscess, next extraperiosteal abscess. At the end of the day, cavernous sinus thrombosis. So this order is followed like this. This order is followed like this. Preseptal cellulitis. So I told you this is a septum of the particular thing. So when you have this periosteum, it goes like a septum. Okay, in front of the septum, it is preseptal cellulitis. Okay, so it is named like that. You might ask, it can be called as, why can't it be called as postseptal cellulitis? It is named as preseptal cellulitis. Okay. So preseptal cellulitis is infection external to the periorbital periosteum. So this is based on the orbital periosteum. Infection external to the orbital periosteum is the preseptal cellulitis. Preseptal cellulitis. So there is edema of the upper lid in the case of frontal sinus, lower lid in the case of maxillary sinus, both lids in the case of ethmoid sinus. Upper lid in the case of frontal sinus, because frontal sinus is able, if you take the eyelid like this, and this will be the frontal sinus, this will be ethmoid, and this will be the maxillary sinus. So upper lid is related to frontal sinus, lower lid is related to maxillary sinus, and both lids is related to, this is the ethmoid sinus. So both lids can be affected. This is the ethmoid sinus. Okay. No erythema, tenderness, or proptosis, or extraocular movement restriction, or vision change. Everything will be normal. Everything will be normal in the eye. Okay, except for this some amount of edema that will be there. So you can see the CT scan of the preseptal cellulitis. This is a preseptal cellulitis. So wherein preseptum. So always remember, orbital periosteum forms the septum. Goes forward like this. There is an anterior part. There is a posterior part, and there will be levator papilla above. And these are the lashes that are there here, and as a whole, the orbit is supported by something called as tarsal plate. Tarsal plate. Preseptal means so orbital in front of the orbital periosteum. Orbital periosteum. You could see preseptal cellulitis. So preseptal abscess. This is the preseptal abscess. Cellulitis. So you should have a basic idea between cellulitis and abscess. I am writing cellulitis, the diffuse inflammation. Abscess is pus collection. Cellulitis becomes a red color. Abscess is pus collection below that. If you cut and give an incision like this and cut it, you will get the pus outside. That is the abscess formation. So preseptal abscess formation. Next step. Next, this is the preseptal abscess. So this see. So I will show you that this is the preseptal cellulitis, which is there here. Just cellulitis is a diffuse inflammation. As you should know, cellulitis is a diffuse inflammation. But whereas abscess is this formation of this pocket of pus. This is the pus. You could see the pus. This is the abscess formation. Orbital cellulitis. Once again, cellulitis is a diffuse inflammation with no abscess. No abscess is not there. Orbital cellulitis, the contents of the orbit are getting inflamed. Okay. Previously it was only the periosteum related to that. Okay. Bone. Now it is the contents of the orbit that you are linking with orbital cellulitis. You are linking with orbital cellulitis. Orbital cellulitis is infection inside the periorbital septum. So inside the septum, as you can see, periorbital inside the septum. So it is going inside. So previously periosteum is not breached. Now it is periosteum is breached. So in orbital cellulitis, periosteum is breached. Periosteum is breached. This you should understand. So periosteum is breached and then it goes inside like that. Okay, it goes inside like the periosteum is breached. Next, diffuse periorbital edema will be there. Proptosis will be there. Proptosis is about eyelid coming outside the orbital cavity. Okay, proptosis will be there. Restriction of extraocular muscles is less, very less restriction of extraocular muscles. Vision is normal. So this is the orbital cellulitis, as you could see here. Orbital cellulitis, wherein breaching of orbital septum, breach of orbital septum. So preseptal cellulitis was here. It has breached the septum and then it has gone into the contents of the orbit. That is orbital cellulitis. Preseptal abscess, extraperiosteal abscess. I'm telling you, extraperiosteal orbital abscess. So previously that was orbital cellulitis. Now it is the extraperiosteal abscess. The abscess formation over here. This is the abscess formation over here. Extraperiosteal abscess formation. So as you could see, localized extraperiosteal pus collection. Proptosis is present. So things become worse and worse as we go forward. Restriction of ocular movements. Ocular movements are restricted. Vision loss is there. Less vision. Color vision is affected. Red color becomes brown. Blue color becomes black. So red is the one which is affected first. Red becomes brown. So red becomes brown, and blue becomes black. So extraperiosteal abscess, as you could see here, okay, abscess, extraperiosteal abscess. This is the point where you could see the extraperiosteal abscess. This is the ethmoid. So you see, this is a normal ethmoid. This is the abnormal ethmoid. So maxillary sinusoids. I already showed you the CT scan last time. So the normal ethmoids, abnormal ethmoids, there is the spread of the disease towards this one. This is the extraperiosteal abscess. Intraperiosteal abscess, it goes inside. So intraperiosteal abscess within the periosteum, towards the periosteum, that is the bone is destroyed, intraperiosteum. So wherein chemosis is present, that is redness of the eyeballs. Proptosis is present, it is increasing, severe, asymmetric and quadratic. So what is proptosis here? That is pushing of the eyeball. So when you say this is the frontal sinus, when you say the frontal sinus, for example, this is eyeball. So proptosis, how it will be there? Frontal sinusitis, it is putting pressure from above. Frontal sinus is putting pressure from above. This is the frontal sinus, this is the ethmoid sinus, and this is the maxillary sinus. It is pushing pressure up from above, so therefore downwards, forwards, and lateral. The eyeball moves downwards, forwards, and lateral. Ethmoid sinus, it is putting pressure laterally, so eyeball moves laterally. Okay, maxillary sinus putting pressure from inferior, so eyeball moves superior. Up and forward. Concurrently, complete ophthalmoplegia will be there. Ophthalmoplegia is, that is, all the muscles are affected. A severe vision loss is present. Concurrent, complete ophthalmoplegia present. Severe vision loss present. So this is what is the proptosis. As you could see, this is the proptosis. That is, it is pushed outwards. So exophthalmos, this is the chemosis. As you could see, this is the red color thing that is present. This is the chemosis. So there is exophthalmos plus eyeball displacement of the eyeball also there. Cavernous sinus thrombosis. At the end of the day, they go to the cavernous sinus. So this is superior orbital fissure through which middle cranial fossa contents enter to the orbit. So there is conduit is the cavernous sinus. Cavernous sinus is affected. So when cavernous sinus thrombosis is one of the dangerous complications, as you know, dangerous area of the face, that is the philtrum area. If you take, this is the nose, this is the lips. So there is like ophthalmic veins and facial veins. As you could see the connections of the cavernous sinus, they go towards the cavernous sinus. So valvulus nature, because of valvulus nature, they spread the infection. So they can also lead infection from sinus from here to the cavernous sinus. So the cavernous sinus is a dangerous area wherein there is a onset of hectic fever. Severe fever will be there. Bilateral orbital pain will be there, and severe chemosis will be there. Especially important point is the bilateral one. Bilateral pain will be there. Bilateral, previously all were unilateral, and bilateral absent pupillary reflex. Pupillary reflex will be absent. Pupillary reflex, as you know, light from second, it goes in second, and pupillary reflex, pupil constricts by third now. So third now is one of the content of this particular cavernous sinus. Therefore, pupillary reflex is affected. Bilateral symmetrical axial proptosis. Both will come outside. Both the eyes will come outside bilaterally and symmetrically. Cavernous sinus is bilateral representation, as you know. So how is the cavernous sinus present? If you take the sphenoid sinus, if this is the sphenoid sinus, here will be the cavernous sinus always. So here will be the pupillary, and this side will be the cavernous sinus. So this is the pituitary, this is sphenoid, and this is the cavernous sinus on this side, cavernous sinus on this side. Only they will be affected because the cavernous sinus two are connected by intercavernous sinus. Intercavernous connections, they lead to, therefore that is why they lead to bilateral. Sequential ophthalmoplegia. Ophthalmoplegia is one, that is sixth cranial abducens is affected for first 6 and next 3, next and 4. So abducens is affected first, oculomotor is affected second, trochlear is affected third. Abducens, oculomotor and trochlear. Okay. So as you know, the mnemonic we'll remember as O-Tom-Cat. Okay, O-Tom-Cat. O-Tom-Cat, that is abducens is the one which is down, almost down. So if you take the cavernous sinus like this, there will be internal carotid artery here, and this will be the abducens. So, but the first one affected is the abducens, that is it paralyzes the lateral rectus. Third one is last one is the fourth one. This is superior oblique is 4, as you know that. So rest all is supplied by these things. So sequential ophthalmoplegia 6, 3, 4. You should remember this. Sequential ophthalmoplegia 6, 3 and 4. 6 and 3 and 4. 6 and 3 and 4. So there is a edema called as papillary edema and loss of vision. There is papillary edema and loss of vision in the case of cavernous sinus thrombosis. Important. Painful paresthesias of 5-1 and 5-2, because 5-1 and 5-2 are also contents of cavernous sinus. 5-1 and 5-2 are also contents, that is ophthalmic and maxillary divisions of the trigeminal nerve. Okay, 5-3 is different. 5-3 is different. So mandibular division, it goes through oval, foramen oval. Is it or not? 5-3 is different. So cavernous sinus thrombosis, as we have seen, so bilateral representation, bilateral intercavernous sinus will be there. So two sides you are seeing and pushing downwards and forwards. So both sides are pushed, both sides, bilateral pushing of the eyes, bilateral chemosis bilateral, and proptosis also bilateral, bilateral proptosis. As you could see, cavernous sinus thrombosis, one of the case. Okay, so you could see chemosis and almost bilateral involvement. You could see bilateral edema is there, bilateral involvement. So absence of contrast in the cavernous sinus is almost diagnostic for this particular absence of contrast. So CT venogram we take for any blood vessel involvement, we go for CT angiography, CT angiogram or CT contrast. Contrast is also for blood vessels. Okay. So contrast is absent, it is not going to go there. So that is the diagnostic for this particular cavernous sinus thrombosis. Cavernous sinus thrombosis, CT scan with contrast. So as you could see, it is not getting glorified. The contrast is not getting glorified. So what is the difference between cavernous sinus thrombosis and orbital abscess? If you take, it is a bilateral one. As we know that bilateral one, then this is the unilateral one. This is rapidly progressive. Cavernous sinus thrombosis will not give time. It gives only 1 or 2 days maximum 1 or 2 days. But orbital abscess can be slowly progressive. It is hectic fever, that is severe fever will be there, and this is a low grade fever. And here severe chemosis bilaterally, the eyeballs become red color, and mild chemosis is there. Here paresthesia of V1 and V2, that is ophthalmic and maxillary divisions of trigeminal nerve. And here there is no paresthesia not related because these nerves are related. Sequential ophthalmoplegia, I told you about 6, 3 and 4. Okay, 6, 3 and 4. 6 followed by 3 followed by 4. 6, 3 and 4. 6, 3 and 4. Concurrent pan-ophthalmoplegia. At a time, orbital abscess, it involves pan-ophthalmoplegia because it is related to the muscles. It is related to muscles. Symmetrical axial proptosis. Bilateral it will be there. Axial proptosis will be there. Symmetrical axial proptosis will be there. Bilaterally represented. Symmetrical quadrantic proptosis. So axial is completely, that is from the, as an axis it comes outside. Quadrantic is one quadrant. For example, if frontal sinus is affected, so it is pushing downwards. It is pulled. The eyeball is pushed downwards. So, for example, if admires are affected, it will be pushed outwards. If maxillary is affected, the eyeball will be pushed upwards. So, there is a quadrantic. This one. Next, orbital apex syndrome. I already told you orbital apex syndrome, wherein there will be frontal headache with a deep orbital pain, deep-seated retroorbital pain. Optic nerve involvement will be there, that is vision loss. Previously, the cavernous sinus, that is 6, 3 and 4 are getting involved. Is it or not? 6, 3 and 4 are getting involved. But here, it starts with 2, second cranial nerve, that is vision loss will be there. Here it is 6 and here it is 3 and here it is 4. And painful paresthesias of V1 and V2 also. Painful paresthesias of V1 and V2, that is 5, 5-1 and 5-2. So orbital apex syndrome, it starts with optic nerve, as you should know. It is O2, that is optic nerve is second cranial, optic nerve is second cranial. Therefore, vision will be gone, will become blind, vision loss will be there. Paralysis of abducens, paralysis of abducens, that is 6 and 3 and 4. So is the order that is followed over here once again, and then 5, 1 and 5, 2. So second cranial now, sixth cranial now, third cranial now, fourth cranial now, and 5, 1 and 5, 2 are also affected. Evaluation of orbital complications. So eye examination, you could see the ophthalmology consultation you should do, edema of the lids, displacement of eyeball, ocular movement, visual acuity you should check, fundoscopy for papilledema, and CT-PNS for coronal and axial section, as you know. Medical treatment, you have to give high dose and high spectrum antibiotics with along with gram-negative also cover ceftriaxone and metronidazole. Okay, ceftriaxone and metronidazole. Third generation along with metronidazole is a best one. And NSAIDs for painkiller, topical oral decongestant you should give. And mucolitis for thick pus conversion you should give bromhexine and ambroxol. Especially ambroxol is very much useful. Nowadays we are using N-acetyl-cysteine also. N-acetyl-cysteine, 600 mg tablets, effervescent tablets. N-acetyl-cysteine also we are using. And saline irrigation. Saline is always helpful to break the thick pus, and it is also physiological solution. So therefore we use saline cleaning. So we give douches. They are called as saline douches. What is that called as? Saline douches. Surgical treatment for sinusitis is frontal, for example, frontal trephination. We'll see all the surgeries of sinuses. Frontal trephination. So this is the frontal sinus, for example, orbits. This is the frontal sinus, and you give a you insert a needle over here. Okay, gauge needle, and then you try to drain the pus. That is called as frontal trephination. The next one is Lynch-Howard surgery. What is Lynch-Howard surgery? So previously they used to say that an external ethmoidectomy is done with Lynch-Howard surgery. They used to give incision over here. They open it and then they break the walls and then go to the ethmoids and then remove the pus. So this would have killed the people because it is nearer to the brain. They used to say that even a surgery for the sinuses will be killing the people. So that much important is this Lynch-Howard surgery. Next, functional endoscopic sinus surgery. As you know, for any nose surgery, it is nowadays functional endoscopic sinus surgery. For orbital complications, you have to drain the subperiosteal abscess drainage. So you drain it subperiosteally. Anything, I was always telling you subperiosteal. It's orbital decompression. So this is the lamina papyracea. You go through first to inside and then try to cut the lamina papyracea. That's called as orbital decompression. So Lynch-Howard incision, I already told you this one. Incision is given. This is the nasal bone. These are the nasal bone this side and this side. And incision will be given on this side. So this is you give something called this is called a tarsorrhaphy repair, or you will tie these things and then you go inside and then you remove the pus and then open this and then you'll get you. This is frontal sinus definition. I told you that a needle is inserted through this frontal sinus and it is pulled off all the pus. Subperiosteal abscess drainage, that is between the caruncle and the semilunar fold. So you find if you take the orbit like this, the caruncle and this is the eyeball, caruncle and semilunar fold. In between here, you'll be giving the incision. Tissue between caruncle and semilunar fold with the tenotomy scissors. Periostomy is incised, Freier's elevator, and you find the abscess and then you have to drain it. So this is the caruncle and this is the semilunar fold of the orbit, okay, of the eyeball, and you give an incision like this. So you cut this. So medial canthal tendon, it is called as medial canthal tendon. You will cut this and then you go subperiosteal. This is the Freier's elevator. This is the Freier's elevator, which you are elevating the periosteum and then go inside and remove all the pus. Indications for orbital decompression. If it is orbital symptoms are not improving in 48 hours, you have to go for CT scan evidence and then visual acuity of less than 20 by 60 or worst visual acuity. In that case, you go for something called as orbital decompression. It is compressed, you are decompressing it. Pressure is removed. Techniques of decompression. What are the techniques of orbital decompression? Patterson's transorbital approach, endoscopic approach, that is by means of, I already told you this endoscope. You do transantral approach through maxillary sinus. You go to the, this is the orbit, is it or not? You puncture here, go into the maxillary sinus, and from there you enter the orbit. Combined intranasal and transantral approach. So medial wall and floor of the orbit can be removed. Removal of one wall leads to 2 to 3 mm, two walls lead to 4 to 7 mm of decompression. So decompression, you are removing it and it is called as decompression. So decompression. So decompression surgery, medial wall and floor of the orbital removed. Results of orbital complications. What are the complications? The exposure keratitis can be there, uveitis, choroiditis, ophthalmoplegia, glaucoma, permanent visual loss is always there. It is very important. You should keep it in mind. Next, coming to the intracranial complications. So intracranial is second component. First is the intraorbital. Second one is the intracranial complications. Most common in adults and young adults because of diploic venous system is peak vascularity with peak vascularity. Frontal sinus is the most commonly associated. Frontal, ethmoid, sphenoid, maxillary. Previously intraorbital, what is the order? Ethmoid more than frontal, more than sphenoid, more than maxillary. So this is intraorbital complications. But intracranial complications, the order is intracranial complications. The order is intracranial complications. The order will be number 1. Frontal will be the one. Next, ethmoid more than sphenoid more than maxillary. Okay, maxillary is the last. Okay, so frontal is the first one. Ethmoid, sphenoid, and maxillary. Why I'm repeating many times is because you will get questions in this. So ethmoid is the most commonest in orbital because in between the orbits is the ethmoid. Commonest route of spread is vein of Breschet. So retrograde thrombophlebitis is vein of Breschet. So you can see the intracranial. I already drawn the diagrams. If it is going to brain, it is a brain abscess, brain tissue. Next is the dura mater, DAP as you remember, arachnoid if it is involved. So if it is subdural abscess, is biconcave as you know, biconvex as I told you, extradural abscess, convex or concave. And then restral, this is the frontal bone, and this is the skin. For example, you could see this is the periosteum, and the frontal sinus as you could see here. So this leads to meningitis if subarachnoid space is involved. Meningitis is subarachnoid space is involved. That is something leading to CSF analysis should be done further, as you know that. So epidural abscess, I told you it will be like this. Subdural abscess is like this. Epidural abscess is convexo concave. Okay, and this subdural abscess, and this is the brain abscess that you are seeing here. Fever will be there, headache will be there, deep-seated projectile vomiting is the most important thing in meningitis, as you could see. Kernick sign and Brudzinski sign, as you know. Kernick sign and Brudzinski sign. Kernick sign, as you know, flexion of the knee produces flexion of hip and knee. Brudzinski sign and Brudzinski sign. Brudzinski sign. Kernick sign, Brudzinski sign related to stiffness because of all this particular meningitis involvement. Okay. Next, stiffness will be there, seizures will be there, altered sensorium because brain tissues are involved and mood changes are there. Bradycardia, hypotension and stupor will be there. So bradycardia will be there, hypotension will be there and stupor will be there. Frontal lobe abscess, as you could see, this is the extradural abscess. If you can find it here, frontal lobe abscess can be found over here. So more common is the frontal lobe abscess. Why? Because I told you frontal is more than ethmoid, more than sphenoid, more than maxillary. So axial MRI and coronal section. So you could see the coronal section MRI also you could see here. So investigations and medical treatment that you have to go for a neurosurgery opinion definitely because brain is involved. CTPNS, brain with contrast, MRI, investigation of choice. MRI with contrast is the investigation of choice. And high dose IV broad spectrum antibiotics like ceftriaxone, 3rd generation, and metronidazole for 6 weeks. Steroids are controversial. So, but sometimes they use steroids because to decrease the intracranial pressure. Surgical treatment for sinusitis, frontal definition, external frontal ethmoidectomy, Lynch overt already done, plus already done. Intracranial complication for small abscess, burr hole, and craniotomy for larger one. Craniotomy for larger one. Sequelae, they have seizures, hemiparalysis, and hemiplegia, and death also will be there. These are all neural related seizures, neural related complications, as you know that. Mucocils of the PNS. What is mucocil? Epithelium lined mucus filled sac completely filling the PNS capable of expansion. It can expand and erode also. Erode the because of pressure necrosis. Because of pressure it can erode. Okay, it is very important. And frontal sinus. Here it is more common is frontal ethmoid. You can remember as FEMS. Okay, FEMS. So So intraorbital complications, ethmoid is more than frontal, more than sphenoid, more than maxillary. So intraorbital complications, as you know, frontal more than ethmoid, more than sphenoid, more than maxillary. Mucosal formation, maxillary more than frontal, more than ethmoid, more than maxillary, more than sphenoid. Very easy to remember. So FEMS is the most common. So frontal is the most common. Etiology, it is because of obstruction of the sinus ostium, okay, related to normal sinus mucosa within the sinus cavity. So it is something related to mucus retention cyst. It is called as mucus retention cyst, developing from obstruction of ducts of seromucinous glands. Mucus glands, they want to drain outside, but if the duct is obstructed, the mucus gland become big and big and big. That becomes mucus retention cyst. It is called as MRC. Cyst is one thing which is having a lot of fluid inside. It is a cyst, mucus retention cyst within the sinus mucosa. It is a cystic, non-tender above the inner canthus with eggshell crackling sensation of palpation. So once again the same thing, frontal it will be facing downwards, ethmoidal lateral it goes lateral, and maxillary it will be facing upwards. So orbit will be facing upwards. So eyeball, this is the eyeball position, as you know I already explained. Diplopia, restricted eyeball movement, and frontal headache and retroorbital facial pain will be there. Headache because of all the obstruction and the negative symptoms. So headache in the case of sinusitis is called as, what is that called as? Vacuum headache. The headache in the case of sinusitis is called as vacuum headache. Headache in sinusitis is called as vacuum headache. So it leads to acute and chronic sinusitis is a differential diagnosis. Retention cyst, dermoid cyst, cholesterol granuloma, PNS tumors, and anthropoanal polyp. So AC polyp is also one of the differential diagnosis for that. PNS tumors can be there. So next class will be about the paranasal sinus tumors. Get ready for the carcinomas. So X-ray PNS, they are expanded. So X-ray PNS expanded frontal sinus expansion and scalloped margins. Scalloped margins loss and scalloped margins are lost, and there is a translucency, depression or erosion of the supraorbital ridge. Erosion can be there. So it expands. Because of that, the orbit is compressed or the bone will be damaged. CT scan, homogeneous, smooth walled mass, expanding in the sinus, and thinning of the bone. It can be thinning of the bone. So there can be ring enhancement. If there is a ring enhancement, it can be called as a pyocele. Ring enhancement is a pyocele. So as you could see, frontal sinus mucosa is a frontal sinus, is a frontal duct opening here. So mucosal can be expansive. So this is a frontoethmoidal mucosal. You could see frontoethmoidal mucosal. So it is looking like cancer or something like that. Based on patient complaints and examination, you'll be able to tell the mucosal. Frontoethmoidal mucosal. Once again, you could see frontoethmoidal mucosal over here, frontoethmoidal mucosal over here. Frontoethmoidal mucosal with proptosis. This is one frontoethmoidal mucosal with proptosis. You could see this is a frontoethmoidal mucosal with proptosis pushed outwards. So ethmoidal one it pushes outwards laterally, is it or not? That is known. And frontal one it pushes downwards. So it is going in this angle. Maxillary mucosal, maxillary sinus mucosal, as you could see here, maxillary sinus mucosal. Ethmoidal and sphenoidal mucosal over here. Sphenoidal sinus mucosal is over here. So treatment is antibiotics, decongestants. So once again, Lynch-Howard procedure, external frontoethmoidectomy, endoscopic frontoethmoidectomy, endoscopic decompression. The surgery for any cyst is called as marsupilization. So you will be cutting the cyst and then opening it, and then inside margins will be exposed outside. Okay, that is marsupilization. What is marsupilization? Inside margins exposed outside. Like you remove socks in your ultrasound. Next, osteoplastic flap repair. Osteoplastic flap repair. So mucosal, this is a middle terminal, this is a mucosal you could see like a CT scan, you could see the mucosal over here. So drainage and marsupilation. Once you drain, the fluid is coming like this, and marsupilation is making it outside. The cyst wall is outside. Post-op CT scan. So you could find the CT scan over here, and this is the normal one. This is the one which is operated one. Osteoplastic flap is you are raising a flap like with a bicoronal incision or bibro incision. You are raising and then opening the frontal bone, and then you are just giving a drainage. Osteoplastic flap repair. So these are the nasal bones you are able to find here. So you are giving a bicoronal flap you will be raising. So you will be incision here, and you will be raising flap till this level. You find this frontal bone and then try to drain it. So frontal sinus mucosa from external. Nowadays, external is not being done. Everything is done with something called as functional endoscopic sinus surgery. So frontal sinus pyoceal and fistula. You could see the pyoceal and fistula. Fistula formation. If it is not drained, it will drain by itself. Nature will drain by itself. Next, Pott's puffy tumor is the frontal sinus osteomyelitis. I already told you frontal sinus osteomyelitis because it is having a bone marrow, for example. Pott, fluctuant swelling over the forehead. Fluctuant swelling over the forehead. It can spread posteriorly to form subdural abscess. So 6 weeks of antibiotics, drainage of pus, debridement of bone, and obliteration of frontal sinus by osteoplastic flap technique. Osteoplastic flap technique. So this is a Pott's puffy tumor. What is the differential diagnosis? Confusing one is Cox peculiar tumor. You have the other words called as Cox peculiar. I already told you. Cox peculiar tumor. Cox peculiar tumor. So extradural abscess, and this is the Pott's puffy tumor. So this can spread like this Pott's puffy tumor. Next, oroantral fistula. So this is a communication. So through the maxilla and through the oral cavity. So by buccal mucosal advancement flap. So buccal mucosa is taken and flap is put here, or palatal flap. Palatal mucosa is taken, flap is put. What is flap? Flap is the one which has got a own blood supply. So you are taking a tissue along with blood supply and putting on it so that it will grow here. Buccal pad flap. Okay. Buccal pad flap. So this is oroantral fistula, metallic probe test. This is a probe test for the fistula. So maxillary sinus plus fistula formation. You can see the fistula over here in this particular thing. The fistula is formed toward the oral cavity from the floor of the maxillary sinus. You could see the fistula. So oroantral fistula, you are able to see the buccal mucosal flap that is elevated. So with the help of its blood vessels, it is closed, and then it gives nourishment, and then after a few days it is closed, and you can cut it off like this. So once again, buccal mucosal advancement flap, as you could see, mucosa advanced over here. Maxillary sinus, you could find communication oroantral fistula, you could find it here. Upper right premolar teeth. So fistula is closed after post-operative period. So buccal mucosal advancement flap covering the bony defect of the floor of the antrum. So buccal fat pad, as you could see. So these are all the different techniques. So see, surgery cannot be demonstrated to you directly. You can come to the OT and then see when the case is there. But these are just the pictures that you could see. So this is how you should remember and then write the things. Okay. And palatal flap closure. You have taken a flap from the palate and then closed it. Palatal flap. So combination of all three types. So buccal fat pad flap, buccal mucosal flap, and palatal flap. These are all the things that are there for your particular this oroantral fistula. Combined flap closure. So you can do all these things. And last one is the toxic shock syndrome, where more commonly because of staph aureus. This is the worst thing that can occur, staph aureus, and rarely potentially fatal complications. So septicemia due to staphylococcus aureus, as I already told you, or streptococcus infection. Rarely staphylococcus, more common staphylococcus aureus. So common organism for this sinusitis complication is staph aureus. So fever, hypotension, skin rash, desquamation, multisystem failure. As you know, staphylococcal toxic shock syndrome is mediated by toxic shock syndrome toxin of staph aureus. As you know that in microbiology we will be reading that. So ceftriaxone, once again, drainage of the pus also you will be doing. So this completes the sinusitis complications by now. And then next thing what we are going to do is we will have a small brief introduction of this. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we'll have a brief introduction of anatomy of the maxilla as a PowerPoint in 10 minutes, and next class will be about our particular this one. So once you go for that, are you able to see that PowerPoint?
Yes,
Hello?
sir.
Okay. Are you able to see the maxilla?
Yes, sir. The skull bones.
Skull bones, yeah. So this is a brief introduction of this maxilla. Now after that, next one is about our carcinoma. So next time just I will be showing it from outside only. So just keep so maxilla is the second largest bone, as you could see. So maxilla is the second largest bone. Are you able to see that? See the pointer?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, the maxilla is the second largest bone of the face, and first being the mandible, as you know. So this is the maxilla over here, and it is forming the floor of the orbit, and this is the frontal process of the maxilla. This is the frontal process of the maxilla, and this is the anterior part, and this is forming the upper dentition, as you know that. and this is the maxillary and zygomatic junction. As you could see, this is zygomatic bone, and it is frontal process of maxilla and the floor of the orbit, as you could see here. And this is the inferior orbital fissure, and this is the superior orbital fissure. They form two maxilla form the upper jaw. Two maxilla form the upper jaw. So three cavities, that is the roof of the mouth, and then floor and lateral wall of the nose and floor of the orbit are formed. So orbit, floor of the mouth, and nose. All these three things, mucosa are different. Here mucosa is different. Here mucosa is different. Here mucosa is different. So stratified squamous here, and then the ciliated columnar here, and then this is the orbital floor. So once we are taking the parts of the maxilla, so we could see. So once you are seeing the parts of the maxilla here, just I am trying to give an introduction here. So this is the frontal process of the maxilla, and this is infraorbital margin, infraorbital foramen. So this one marks, as you should know, for the next class. So this is one of the boundaries for the breaking of the maxilla, that is maxillectomy. So this is one of the boundaries for maxillectomy, inferior orbital foramen, and this is the zygomatic process. This is the nasal crest, and this is the nasal notch. So surfaces like four surfaces: anterior facial, posterior infratemporal, superior orbital, medial is nasal. So nasal one related to nasal, and maxillary sinus is the important one, which is the. So four processes are there: frontal process, so the frontal bone; zygomatic process, to zygoma, and then alveolar process. This is the alveolar process for the particular teeth, and palatine process for the palate. So anterior surface, as you could see over here, there are many things. So this is in the front that you could see over here, wherein you palpate for this particular. You palpate for your particular canine fossa. So any sinus tenderness is there, the canine fossa. So this is the infraorbital foramen, as you could see, infraorbital foramen for the nerves and vessels, and this is the nasal notch that you could see. This is the pyriform aperture for your nose and anterior nasal spine. This is the nasal crest, as you could see over here. So nasal crest, and this is the frontal process of maxilla and infraorbital foramen. And levator labia superioris arises between the infraorbital margin and infraorbital foramen. So infraorbital margin in between here and here. So levator labia superioris arises over here. So as you can see, different muscles that are there. Medial palpebral ligament, orbicularis oculi is going to be there, and levator labia superioris, siliconaceae, and dilator naris, compressor septae, and depressor septae. All these things. So levator angularis, all these are muscles that are attached to that. Anyhow, that is the anatomical aspect. We are not going to discuss. We are just going to discuss the surgical aspects. So posterior surface, when you take the posterior surface of the maxilla, so you have got the infratemporal fossa over here. Wherever the finger is placed in this is the infratemporal fossa. Okay. So convex and dilated backwards and laterally. So anterior wall of the infratemporal fossa. So behind the maxillary sinus is the infratemporal fossa, and then posterior inferiorly is the maxillary tuberosity. So you have got the maxillary tuberosity posterior inferiorly. Posterior inferiorly is the maxillary tuberosity, which is the origin of medial pterygoid muscle. So maxillary tuberosity will be there. Posterior inferiorly. This is the maxillary tuberosity over here. You are able to see here. The superior surface, as you could see, anterior, posterior, medial, and lateral medial borders are three things. Superior surface is related to your orbit, as you could see over here. So medial surface is related to your nose, lateral part of the nose, as you already explained, lateral part of the anatomy of the nose. So then maxillary sinus, as you know, this is the maxillary sinus that is present over here. And these are the frontal process of the maxilla that you could see over here. This is the frontal process of the maxilla. So palatine process, as you could see here, this is a palatine process which forms the hard palate. So why I am telling all these things is, so you will have a basic idea of all the anatomical landmarks when you are dealing with the nose cancers. Okay. So next time we will repeat this one once, and then we will try to go into the cancers of the nose. So zygomatic process, this is the zygomatic process which is getting articulated with the maxilla over here. Okay. So I said about the tripod fractures also even during that. Okay. And this is the alveolar process wherein the upper teeth are present. And these are the articulations of the maxilla, like superiorly frontal bone, lacrimal, nasal bone. Next, medially is ethmoid, opposite maxilla, inferior concha, palatine bone, and laterally is the zygomatic bone. So this completes about the basic introduction of this maxilla. So next time when we are going to deal with the cancers of the nose, we will have a basic idea. Once again, we will have a superficial view, because there is time I have completed this only superficially. We'll have a basic understanding and then go till the level of your completion of no scanses. Okay. Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this marks the ending of the class. So next class will be on Tuesday. Okay. Thank you very much.